Welcome to tonight's live stream. I am going to get started in a minute, but before I get started, I just need to let everybody know that the show is getting ready to start on social media. Okay, I am gonna get started in a minute, but I'll just sit here and wait for some people to come in before I start tonight's show. So, okay, tonight's show. Well, before I do start talking about tonight's show, I'm gonna go into a little bit of perfunctory. And this perfunctory is going to be about several things that are going on with me right now. Now, a lot of my viewers, they wanted to know how I was doing after the remnants of Ida poured down on Wednesday, and I have been doing perfectly fine for the last couple of days. Now, there was a lot of flooding here in New York City in subway stations, and that made it where it was next to impossible for anybody to really get around because the trains were all shut down. And here in this neighborhood I'm living in right now, even some of the bus lines got suspended. But I am doing perfectly fine right now, and I just want everybody to know that I'm all right because I got a lot of people on Facebook. They were asking me how I was doing, and I am holding up okay here in NYC. Over the course of the last 2 days, I have been working on some stuff as related to different things, and I've also been out here, getting out all the requested videos. So a lot of the videos you guys are seeing in the listings, that's what I was working on. These were videos that many of my viewers requested on the Cash App and the PayPal. And again, if you guys want to request a video, you can request by donating to the Cash App or donating to the Patreon or the PayPal. If you donate to those platforms, I know something about the subject, I will go out here and make that video for you. Now, I also have some news on the upcoming John Haynes comic, John Haynes at Death's Door. And that comic, I have gotten like 1/3 of the art back from the artist, and this book looks really, really nice. I can't wait to share it with you guys. He's almost done with the first third of the book, and I really know that you guys are going to really like what's coming up as related to John Haynes at Death's Door. And I've also been working up the logistics of the Kickstarter for John Haynes at Death's Door. So that's something I'm also working out for the upcoming comic. So I'm working out things so I can also not only give you the comic, but some great stretch goals. And I'm also working out the logistics for the printing of the John Haynes at Death's Door comic. And I hope to get that out by either late 2021 or late 2022. So not late 2020, early 2022. So That's what I'm working on right now as related to the comic. I'm also have been working on two other SJS Direct upcoming books. One of them is Easting Cancel Vacation, which is my commentary on the subject of cancel culture and your social justice warriors. And you can pre-order the Kindle version of Easting Cancel Vacation on Amazon's Kindle right now. And the other book that is related to tonight's topic is one that I definitely want to see more men go out here and pick up, and that is Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Now, Stop Simping in Cyberspace is a book that I believe is desperately needed after hearing about the tragic story of Instagram model Ms. Mercedes Morr. Now, after I heard about the tragic story of Miss Mercedes Morr, I made a video, and this live stream is actually one that one of my viewers requested that I make regarding the incident as related to her passing. And this live stream is one I really wanted to do because I wanted people to know about how dangerous these cyber simps are. Now, I have done live streams in the past about your cyber simps, and as I started to see the trend as related to the whole cyber simp issue back in 2019. Now, when I first saw the issue of the cyber simp starting to emerge, it was when I saw the live streamer Belle Delphine going out here and selling her bathwater for $30. Now, she was one of the first of these female predators to take many of these cyber simps for granted, and a lot of these women who are online, whether it be these women who are out here doing the OnlyFans subscription site, the women going out here participating in a lot of these e-girl live streams, or some of these cam girls are out here. A lot of these women really take these cyber simps for granted, and they don't really see the clear and present threat that is in front of them as related to these cyber simps. And because they don't see the clear and present danger as related to many of these cyber simps, what happens is they don't really see how dangerous these guys are. Now, what makes many of your cyber simps extremely dangerous individuals is the fact that many of your cyber simps is the way that they're raised. Now, many of your cyber simps, a lot of these guys, they really don't grow up being raised by parents. No, many of their parents put many of these men when they were boys in front of electronic devices, and they raised them in front of electronic devices like desktops, laptops, and smartphones, and they raised them without any sort of guidance. And because they don't get any sort of guidance, many of these males have extremely poor social skills, and they really do not know how to navigate social relationships with either men or women. So when you're dealing with a cyber simp, this is a boy who has been raised with technology in his life. Unfortunately, he has not really developed really good interpersonal skills, and he really hasn't developed really strong people skills. And because he has not developed strong interpersonal skills and people skills, what happens to many of these young boys is that they grow up into adolescence and young men who really have really terrible interpersonal skills and social skills, because instead of learning how to socialize with real people, in a lot of cases, these guys learn how to socialize online. And many of these guys, because they have been bullied and harassed in real life, they retreat to the internet in order to be social. So you'll have a young man who is out here, he's learning how not to be social in the real world because he is dealing with a lot of pain, but he learns to retreat to the virtual world. And as he's retreating to the virtual world, what he's doing is going there to be social because he believes he is safer online than he is in the real world. But the big problem is with many of your cyber simps, is what I talk about in my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, is these boys don't really learn the male life skills and male survival skills in order to navigate the social world. So because these males never learn how to navigate the social world, what they do is they go to the virtual world. And as they're going to the virtual world, they really develop some really poor life skills. And this is what leads to them becoming extremely vulnerable to female predators because there are no parents to sit down and tell them that, in the real world, you're going to have to deal with a lot of negative criticism. You have to develop a thick skin as related to people criticizing you. You have to be able to just shake it off and roll it off. A lot of these guys never learn these type of life skills. And instead of them persevering in the face of people laughing at them or criticizing them in a social situation, instead they go to the internet and they go to places like back in the late 90s and early 2000s. They would go to places like your chat rooms and they would go to your message boards to go out here and socialize. And as they were going on these places, again, these young males, they felt very safe there, but they never really worked through their being introverted, their social anxiety, and their social awkwardness. And because they never worked through being introverted, having issues like social anxiety and social awkwardness, they never really grew and developed those social skills that a man needs in order to navigate the world. And this is where your cyber simp, it becomes vulnerable to predators because he again has a very weak set of social skills, and that makes him partially a target for female predators, but it also makes him a major threat to himself because oftentimes when you're dealing with your cyber simp, he's not a person who is getting a clear and balanced picture of the real world. No, oftentimes your cyber simp, he sees the world from a rose-colored perspective that is completely distorted by the virtual world that he lives in. Because his perspective of the world is completely distorted by the virtual world and media such as internet porn and your adult entertainment, he really has a real twisted perception of women. And that's because he's never had an interaction with real women. He lives in a world of virtual women, and in that world of virtual women, he's so caught up in these rose-colored fantasies that he cannot connect with real people. So he has not really developed those life skills that a boy usually develops in adolescence with the guidance of his parents because they're away and they're putting him in front of the computer to escape. So he's not really developing those life skills in the real world. He's going to the virtual world. And as he's going to the virtual world, he is seeing a completely different view of girls and women. And that distorted picture, really, it's just completely unrealistic because he's seeing a world from the fantasies of pornography and adult entertainment. And because he's looking for these women from those fantasies of pornography and adult entertainment, he is not understanding how social relationships work between a man and a woman. And he doesn't understand the social cues to look for in relationships. because he's so busy looking for these ideals, and he's not really going out here and experiencing and learning how to work with the real. So a lot of your cyber simps, again, they really don't know how things work. And when they go on places like the virtual world, they are looking to go out here and take shortcuts because they don't want to deal with criticism from people. They don't want to deal with rejection from women. And they're looking to try to find an easy yes. And because they're looking for an easy yes, what many of your cyber simps do is they go out here and look to try to pursue women online. And that's where they start to really run into problems because a lot of times these guys, because they have not developed good social skills, what they do is think that these virtual images of women, like your IG models, are who they really are. And that's what happened in the case of your Instagram model, Ms. Mercedes Morr. This guy got caught up in the fantasy regarding her. And as he got caught up in the fantasy regarding her, he couldn't really tell the difference between fantasy and reality because he had no parents in the home to sit down and talk to him and explain to him that many of these online personalities that you're seeing, this is not who they are. No, this is a persona they are creating. And the reason why they create these personas is because they want to go out here and get attention for themselves, and they want to go out here and get likes and that attention, and also be able to manipulate these guys into giving them money so that they can go out here and continue to create this virtual fantasy that they have established. So what a lot of these guys out here, the cyber simps, don't understand is that when it comes down to many of these female predators, they are looking to run a business at the expense of the cyber simp. And the whole business is designed so that you will get caught up in your lust about the fantasy she is creating. And as you're caught up in the lust regarding the fantasy she is creating, you will go out here and create a covert contract between you and herself, where you will continue to get caught up in your lust and you will continue to go out here and do things like ask and give her donations to her PayPals or her Cash apps. And you will go out here and buy things like subscriptions to her OnlyFans, or you'll go out here and put donations on her Patreon in order to get her exclusive content. So you're thinking that there's a possibility for a relationship, but there was never a possibility for a relationship because she is all about business, but you can't explain this to the cyber simp because he's living in a rose-colored world, and in that rose-colored world, he's believing that he's getting into a possibility of a relationship every time he puts money down on this woman's either her super chats, her cash apps, her Patreon, or her PayPal. He's believing that with every dollar he spends, he is spending a dollar towards a possible personal connection with this person, but there never was an opportunity for her to even think about having a relationship with him. This was all a business to her, and it's a business model that has proven very successful for many of these female predators, whether it be these Instagram models, whether, again, it be these e-girls who do live streams on Twitch, whether it be these cam girls, or whether it be these women on OnlyFans. This is a very successful business model that has reaped hundreds of thousands of dollars for some women and billions of dollars as an industry. And many of these guys out here, they don't understand that this is a business model, and it's a very successful business model that strippers and prostitutes have used over the years. And it's all about them getting you to buy into their sales practices and get you to be the mark, because the ultimate goal of this whole business is to go out here and take advantage of the mark. And that's what they really see the cyber simp as. They see him basically as a mark who they can easily take advantage of. So they don't see the cyber simp as any guy they have any sort of interest in. No, they see him as a tool they can use, and they see him as a tool they can easily get money out of, because the ultimate goal is to get the cyber simp to go out here and spend, and they want to get him so caught up in his feelings of lust that he just keeps dropping large amounts of dollars. And as he's caught up in his lust and his delusions, what happens is these guys, they go out here and drop large sums of money on many of these women. And what they do is they get in a trance and they're spending this money without ever really thinking about how much they've spent. And that, what on the surface may look like the guy is really stupid, but what's really dangerous about the cyber simp is he's in this trance, he's caught up in these fantasies, and in that from that rose-colored perspective, he really can't see the reality. So a lot of these guys, again, they're out here forming these covert contracts with a lot of these women. And as they're forming these covert contracts, many of these guys are making up a deal for themselves where they're believing that if they spend money on this woman online, they are working towards a possible relationship with this woman. And as this woman is talking to them online and saying their names, what is happening is these guys are believing they're making a connection with this woman, but they aren't really making any connection at all, because this is not how healthy relationships work. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys, again, because they have not had any parents in their lives to sit down and teach them proper life skills and proper social skills, they're believing that they are making progress when they spend money, but they're not making any progress at all as related to any relationship with these females. So he's not making a single minute of progress at all, but he's thinking that every time she says his name during a live stream, or she sends him a cut and pasted personal message, that he's getting somewhere, but in actuality, he's going nowhere, because in a lot of cases, many of these women, he calls himself getting into his feelings about. A lot of these women, they don't even care about him in any way, shape, or form. So a lot of these guys are out here, they're dropping the thirsty comments, they're making statements, and they're believing that because they get a response that she actually cares, but in most cases she doesn't care, because this is a business to her and it's separate from her personal life. Now, the people in her personal life, a lot of times, they are completely separated from that business. And a lot of these guys, they don't even know that many of these women that they're going out here and building worlds around, many of them are married. Many of these women have children. Some of them have boyfriends. So a lot of these guys, they build the world around this fantasy that this woman has created, and they don't really see the real person, and they get caught up in the fantasy. Glad to see you here, Gabriel, Jerobi, Rob IS, Gordon. Glad to see you all here, Mr. Urban World, Dylan. Glad to see you all here. I wanted to do this live stream because one of my viewers requested it, and I wanted to do this because the upcoming book, I believe the upcoming book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, is extremely relevant after seeing the death of Mrs. Mercedes Morr. This is a book that I believe men are going to have, or going to essential reading. This is essential reading because you have a lot of young men who grew up with computers and smartphones, and they didn't get those life skills as related to being able to navigate the World Wide Web and social relationships with women. And they're believing that these fantasies that they're having are leading towards reality. But the big problem is this is not how relationships in the real world work. And again, a lot of these guys, what happens with a lot of them is they go out here, they build worlds around these online personas, believe it's a real person, and as they go out here and build this world around this fantasy, like a Ms. Mercedes Morr, they believe that this is the real person, but this is not the real person. And as they're building this world around them, what a lot of these guys do is, because there's nobody in their life to really teach them about how things work, they go to these message boards, they go to these platforms, and they form these echo chambers. And in those echo chambers, all they're hearing are people who tell them what they want to hear. What's going on, Tamaris? Glad to see you here. And I'm going more in depth in the subject of these dangers of cyber simps. And what makes these guys really dangerous is, as they are in these echo chambers, like these message boards such as Reddit or Facebook, what happens to a lot of these guys is they get their opinions validated by other like-minded individuals, and they get no counterpoint to give them some perspective. Because one of the big problems with a lot of guys who are raised online is they have nobody there to really give them some perspective. They have no elder there, like a father or a mother, to pull him to the side and say, no, this is not real. This is a fantasy. And there's nobody there to pull him to the side and say, that's not how things work. What he does is he goes online because he's so afraid of criticism, and he listens to people who agree with him all the time. And as they're inside of these echo chambers on these message boards and these platforms and even the dark web, where they're just being told what they want to hear, what happens is these guys just hear the same opinions over and over again. And then what's even worse, they go to the search engines, look for more of the same type of content. And as they're looking for the same kind of content, they're hearing the same points over and over again. And as they're listening to the same points over and over again in these echo chambers and having their opinions constantly validated, they are believing that these are the actual facts, but none of this stuff has been verified and none of this stuff has been confirmed. And because none of this stuff has been really validated and confirmed or vetted by people who present balanced counterpoints, what happens is many of these guys, they live a completely distorted picture of reality, and they don't really see much of the facts, because that is one of the dangers of what I call the 20 teens internet, is that we're not really getting a lot of perspective on things. And when you have cyber simps, that really is what makes them dangerous, because many of these men, they will sit there like your incels and be like, it's okay for me to hate women because there's a whole bunch of other guys who don't like women. And then you'll have these other guys who create these fantasy worlds around these different online personas. And again, all these guys never really get any sort of counterpoint from older people to give them perspective on things. And because there is no counterpoint, they think that their ideas are the only point. And because they believe it's the only point, they start to believe they are justified in whatever feelings they're having. And as they're in the echo chamber and things are getting amplified, those feelings and ideas start to turn into delusions. And it's these delusions that make the cyber simp, like the one who murdered Ms. Mercedes Morr, dangerous, because as they're having these delusions, they are not really seeing the real picture of the world, because the rose-colored pictures of the world they're seeing are getting darker. And as these pictures of the rose-colored world get darker, what happens is these men start to believe that they are justified in going out here and doing harm to other people. So instead of them going out here and seeing the world as it actually is, they start seeing a darker picture of this world, and they start believing they are justified in going out here and doing harm to other people. So a lot of times when it comes down to your cyber simps, when the world isn't working out the way they want, where their fantasy is not what they expect it to be, and reality starts to seep in, that's when a lot of these men start to get angry, and that's when they start thinking about doing harm to other people. So you'll have a cyber simp, he'll be caught up in the fantasy of one of these IG models, or one of these cam girls, or one of these e-girls, and what will happen is, if things are not going the way he wants in the fantasies he's having that make up his smooth world, what he will do is he will start to get angry, and he will, instead of trying to love this idea that he has of this woman, he starts to hate at her, because this is the real person he's starting to see. And because he starts to see that real person, that's when he starts to lose it. So he'll see the real person, and that will make him angry. And what he'll think, that because this woman has broken up and shattered his fantasy, this is his justification for going out here and doing harm to said woman. So a lot of times with these cyber simps, you won't even know how dangerous these guys are, because they're just a username far, far away from you. You're not understanding that this guy, this is when the prey turns into a predator, because he's seeing the fantasy that was shattered, and because you've shattered his fantasy, now he believes he has a right to go out here and do harm to you. And that's one of the things that makes your cyber simp an extremely dangerous person, is that he's not really, again, seeing the world as it really is. And because he does not see it as it really is, he doesn't see people as people. And because he doesn't see people as people, he just feels that he has a right to do harm to others. And that can lead to a spectrum of extremely violent behaviors. Now, these violent behaviors can range from anything to the minimum of cyber stalking to extremely violent behavior, like we saw what happened with Ms. Mercedes Morr. And your cyber stalkers would be these guys who are so caught up in their fantasy being shattered of this woman that they start going online to this woman's comments page and participating in passive aggressive behaviors, such as flooding her board with comments, or going out here and leaving threatening messages in her direct messages. Now, these messages, they are a sign that this guy is having serious issues, because he's not able to differentiate between fantasy and reality. And now that his reality has been shattered, he's looking to do harm to whatever person he's having issues with. So what he will do is he'll start with the passive aggressive things, such as, again, flooding the person's comment section with comments, or he will go out here and leave threatening messages in the DMs, or he'll go to their social media looking to go out here and leave those threatening messages, or he'll also participate in deviant sexual behavior, such as leaving pictures of his genitals and pictures like that. Again, all of this is cyberbullying, cyber stalking, and cyber harassment. And if a person does not take it seriously early on, they don't really see that this man's behavior is starting to escalate, because these are signs that this individual's behavior is starting to escalate. And when his behavior starts to escalate, you really have to shut it down very early on. You have to go out here and contact places like your YouTubes and your Facebooks and show them snapshots and screenshots of this behavior, because this behavior, again, showing pictures of genitals, putting threatening messages up, and putting up memes and stuff like this is behavior that really, again, you have to deal with it early on, because if you don't shut it down early on, this individual is going to further escalate their behavior to more criminal behavior offline. So this behavior right there is a federal crime, and the faster you deal with it, you can shut it down, because in every device out here, whether it be a smartphone, a laptop, or even some of these smart TVs or these PlayStations that these guys use, all of these devices have something called an IP address. And that IP address is based on the wireless Wi-Fi card inside of all of those devices. So in every computer, every cell phone, every smartphone, every smart TV, PlayStation, device, there is a wireless card, and that wireless card has an IP address. So whenever you contact your social media provider or platform and you get this type of thing, this type of content, what you have to do is report this individual, because they will go out here and contact the ISP, and the ISP will block that device from being able to interact with you on their platform, and probably kick them off the platform, because a lot of this type of behavior, it violates the community guidelines of places like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms, because this is criminal behavior. And if they allow this behavior to go on, they are liable for whatever behavior this individual continues to escalate. Now, many of these guys, they will further, again, continue to escalate their behavior by trolling live streams and going out here and, again, harassing an individual. And some of these guys, what they will do is Google a person's name, and then they will soon find out the person's real name, and they will start to try to find information such as that person's address or that person's phone numbers. And that's what happened in the case of your Ms. Mercedes Morr. She wound up dealing with this stalker who practically went from looking at her pictures online to going out here and digging up this information to find her real name. And a lot of these guys, they will go through the Google looking for this personal information, and they will go to different websites like Model Mayhem, where they go looking to book gigs, or they'll go to their social media that they have, because when you have more than one account, some of these guys, they'll go looking through those different trees, and what they will go is looking for this information, trying to find this person, who they are, and they will go out here and eventually find a person's name and address. I mean, Gordon, yeah, you can use a VPN to deal with things, but eventually what happens is these people, they are very relentless, and eventually they do find this information online. So a lot of these people, these cyber simps, they will find information and they will go looking for it, because a lot of these guys, again, are extremely tech savvy. So they go out here and dig really deep looking for this kind of information. And what's very scary is these guys can go out here and find that information. So they when they see one of these models online and they find her, they will go through the person's YouTube, they will go through the person's Twitter, they will go through the person's Facebook and Instagram looking for things like their emails, things like their accounts. And some of them, they're good at hacking, and they'll go into somebody's um, thing and try to find them through things like internet service providers or even things like court records. And they'll use this to try to go out here and seek out information. And again, this is what makes cyber simps really dangerous. Excuse me, is their extreme tech savvy. So these guys can break past the fantasy, and they're looking to try to break the boundary and go into the real world. And that's another thing that makes their escalation of behavior dangerous. Is these guys, they don't understand the concept of boundaries. Now, most average guys, when they see a person on Instagram or they're on social media with these personas, they can tell the difference between fantasy and reality. And because they can tell the difference between fantasy and reality, they can sit there and say, okay, this is a model posing for pictures. And if she's a model online, then she really doesn't have much real credit, because true to the game models, they work with different agencies and they book gigs where they get paid. So they wouldn't be on a place like social media looking to elevate themselves, because they know that their money is really made booking different gigs with different agents and booking these gigs in order to build their own brand. And a lot of these cyber simps, because they don't know how the entertainment business works, they sit there and believe that this is a real model, but this is not a real model. No, this is a lot of times a wannabe who is looking to try to elevate herself and make herself appear to be something that she's not, but she's not a real model at all. Because again, real models work with agents, and real models book gigs with different companies and different brands. So many of these, what they call IG models, are just wannabes who pretend like your Ms. Mercedes Morr was doing, creating a fantasy that they are actually living in. And what's sad is your cyber simp, because he does not have those life skills to understand that there's a difference between fantasy and reality. He buys into that fantasy, and because he sees the world from a rose-colored reality, he's bought into this fantasy and is creating his own fantasies around this person, not understanding that all of it is not real. And his mind gets so caught up again in the delusions that he starts to escalate his behavior, and he starts to think that he can go out here and have real interactions with these kind of women, and that these are a possibility as related to a real relationship. But there are no possibilities of any sort of real relationship with someone who is creating a fantasy image. No, there is no real personal connection with this individual. She will oftentimes play a role for those customers on social media. Yes, she will smile and be nice to you, but this is all about her business, and this is all about her business making money. Again, this is a business about selling herself so that she can sell you and get you to buy into her fantasy. And that's part of her whole business plan, is to get you to buy into her fantasy so that you can continue to drop those large super chats, you can continue to drop those large cash apps, and you can continue to drop those large sums of money on her platform. And as you're dropping those large sums of money on her platform, she is sitting there getting rich at your expense. And this is something many of your cyber simps don't understand, because a lot of your cyber simps, they have not really been educated on the game as related to how these female predators operate, and they're not really educated on the games that your strippers play in order to get you to go out here and spend money. Now, guys out here who understand the business that's going on, see the business model, and they know not to buy into the business model because the business model is about getting you to get so caught up in your feelings of lust that instead of you thinking with the big head and critically thinking, you start getting emotional and acting on the feelings of the little head. And what happens is, as you're acting on your feelings of the little head, you're out here dropping hundreds of and thousands of dollars on this woman. And again, a lot of these guys, they get upset when they realize that there is no relationship, and that's what leads to these guys starting to simmer and boil and rage, and then eventually they wind up again escalating their behaviors as they go out here and explode in that rage, because when they realize that the only person who's having this covert contract is him, he wants to get mad at the woman, but the problem is, he was never taught the proper male life skills. And because he was never taught how to be a man, what happens is he winds up getting angry. And the person he needs to get angry at is himself. It's not that these women are the evil ones here, they are female predators, but he was never really taught anything. And he sat there and bought into this, and he just never really understood where things were because nobody, again, taught him anything. So that's what, again, what makes a cyber simp dangerous is a lot of times his ignorance. Your cyber simp, because he's ignorant on many subjects as related to dating and relationships and people, it makes him a very dangerous individual because he wants to go out here and do these things, and he wants to go out here and use the easy shortcuts of going online because he believes that he can go out here and pursue women just like you go on a place like Amazon.com and be able to pick out a woman who he likes on one of these Twitch streams or one of these streams. But people don't go to these places looking for people to connect to. No, nobody really goes to these places like OnlyFans or Twitch to form connections with people. No, they usually have family gatherings or social situations where they go out here and meet regular people. That's what healthy people go out here and do. They go out here looking to pursue relationships in social places. They don't go out here thinking that they can go on places like Instagram and social media to look for relationships. They go out here and they look for relationships with real people, and they form real relationships with people. And they understand that rejection is part of the process, criticism is part of the process, and they accept that that you have to have a thick skin in order to navigate things. Unfortunately, when it comes down to your cyber simp, he never really developed that thick skin. He never really developed the ability to take constructive criticism because oftentimes there were no parents there to give him guidance, and he was sheltered and coddled. And a lot of times he was out here, he was so traumatized that he ran to his computer, but you can't run to your computer. You have to go out into the real world and you have to learn how that real world works because that's the way you break out of the cyber simp paradigm. Because the cyber simp, what he wants to do again is avoid people through computers, but you can't avoid people with a computer because a lot of times when you're trying to avoid real people, what will happen is you will run into a lot of predators because that's the kind of people who lurk in these kind of places, and they look for your cyber simp to try to prey on him. But a lot of times your cyber simp, he starts to go out here and become a predator himself because as his world gets shattered, this is what makes him extremely violent, and this is what makes him an extremely dangerous individual because his ignorance and naivety, it just leads to him getting emotional and angry, and he wants to lash out at people. But the whole problem is that because nobody has taught him how to navigate things, this is why he gets so upset about things as related to social relationships, because he's looking to escape through online platforms, but you can't escape relationships with online platforms. They are not something you can use for a shortcut. There are places where you're going to see nothing but trouble, because again, you have a guy who doesn't know how things work trying to take a shortcut online, and he's thinking that it's like Amazon, he's thinking it's like Google, he's thinking it's something he can go out here and escape through, but there is no escape. You're just going to have to put in that kind of work. And a lot of cyber simps, a lot of these guys are lazy, and a lot of them don't want to do the work. A lot of them believe that they don't have to do the work because they have a computer. And because they have a computer, they believe that the computer will do the work for them, the same way we do online shopping. But there are some things that a person has to do face to face, and you have to do those things in order to accomplish things. I mean, in order for people to connect with other people, they have to go be around other people. And this is something the cyber simp is afraid to do. And again, it's that fear that is one of the things that also makes him dangerous, along with his ignorance and his emotions, because he's so afraid of going into the real world, because he's so used to his safe space of the fantasy world. What he wants to do is go out here and stay in his safe space. But in order for a person to grow and connect with other people, they have to come out of their safe space, and they have to go out into the real world. And yes, the real world will be a very hard place, and you're going to deal with some pain. But as you overcome the pain, you go out here and you grow to become a better person. You learn from your mistakes, and you go out here and you learn how to go out here and learn what doesn't work and learn what to do better instead. So what a lot of cyber simps don't want to do is go out here and go through that pain, but everybody has to go through that pain. I mean, I had to go through that pain in adolescence, and I had to learn many of these situations about being social. And I'm a guy who's introverted and has social anxiety issues, but I still go out here and can do what I need to do, because I understand that if I want to accomplish something, I have to face these kind of fears, and I have to overcome these fears, because you just can't hide behind a computer if you want to go out here and grow. If you really want to go out here and grow, to not be one of these cyber simps, you have to go out here and face that world, and you have to go out here and face that world. And even if you fail, it's not a bad thing. This is another thing cyber simps don't understand, is that failing is not a bad thing. Women saying no is not a bad thing. It's just, in the case of a woman saying no, she's just not interested in you, and you just move on to the next woman. And in the case of things not working out as related to connections and relationships, that's just a part of life. And it doesn't mean that this woman is an evil person, because a lot of times cyber simps, they see things in black and white, so they don't really understand that human beings are on the same level. So there's no understanding of how things work as related to going out here and things working. So a lot of these cyber simps, they don't understand if a connection does not really work between a woman and a man, it just wasn't meant to be. It's not personal. And that's another thing that makes a cyber simp a cyber stalker, is he sits there and thinks because the relationship didn't work out, he wants to blame the woman. But that's just a part of life, and both of you were equally incompatible. And because you were incompatible, things don't go out here and work. So that's what happens as related to your women out here and your men, it doesn't work out, and you just deal with it and move on. Boxing fan, if you call yourself an elite level simp, you can break out of that paradigm by picking up my book, Stop Simping: Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance. And you can pick up Stop Simping on Amazon.com today in paperback and Kindle format. And it's a book that'll help you stop being an elite level simp and start taking the steps towards manhood. So that's something that you can go out here and do as related to your cyber simping. And simping in general, you can break out of that paradigm. And it means, again, instead of you going out here being angry at other people, taking responsibility for yourself. And part of taking that responsibility is, like Gabriel was saying, come out of your comfort space, and you have to go out here and deal with the real world. So a lot of these cyber simps, because they don't want to deal with the real world, they want to attack people in the real world, and they want to go out here and hurt other people. Just like in the case of Miss Mercedes Morr, he wanted to kill her because he was afraid of going out into the real world. And because he couldn't deal with that, what happened was he wound up murdering her and taking his own life. Now, there have been other cases of cyber simps going out here and trying to do harm to women. And a lot of times what happens to these guys is they wind up getting arrested for federal crimes, in some cases as related to cyber stalking and harassment, or they wind up getting arrested for participating in felonies. And as these guys get arrested and they possibly get convicted, they go from losing their freedom, which is one of the most important intangibles a man could have, to winding up locked up. And as they get locked up, they wind up getting turned out by your Bubba and Tiny and traded for your Fritos chips, your Little Debbie snack cakes, your ramen noodles, as they're doing time in prison. And they didn't have to do that time at all, because had these guys gotten a proper social education and gotten proper life skills, these guys could have gone out here and been able to deal with life in the real world. So if had these guys gotten that, they wouldn't have wound up in prison. They wouldn't have wound up getting locked up. And the whole thing is, all it takes is a little bit of social education to keep a cyber simp from becoming a cyber prisoner. And a lot of these guys, they just need somebody to sit down and talk to them so they can learn how to navigate the world. So what they want, a lot of these cyber simps, again, these are extremely dangerous individuals, but they can be broken out of this with a proper education. And that's the other great irony of the cyber simp, is this guy just is this way because he just doesn't have a good social education. And because he doesn't have a good social education, this is why he just doesn't know how to navigate the world. And sadly, we have 2 to 3 generations of young men who grew up like this, growing up with computers and technology, and they got a great education in how to use this great technology. But the great irony is they don't have good basic social skills. And because they don't have good basic social skills, what happens to those males is they never learn how to socialize and navigate the world as men. A lot of these guys, they think that technology makes them smarter, but what happens is a lot of these guys get outsmarted. What's going on, Joy? Glad to see you here. I am talking about your cyber simps and what makes them dangerous. And I'm also trying to give everybody a little bit of an education on how to break out of the cyber simp paradigm. And Gabriel looks like he's dropping another point, and he says, another irony with the cyber simp is during their childhood, he grew up in a 2-parent household, and the parents let him do what they wish. And that is very true, because a lot of parents, they just give him whatever they want, and they put him in front of a computer like an Elliot Rodger, and they're just sitting there in front of that computer absorbing a lot of knowledge, but they're not getting any proper context because there's nobody there to give him some context to understand how these things work with each other. So a lot of times when you're dealing with a cyber simp, there is nobody there to give him that context on different things. Like a lot of these guys, they believe that porn is real. They don't understand that your porn is fake. And it's just like WWF wrestling. A lot of these guys, they think that these online personas are the real person. A lot of these guys, they have no real understanding of how things actually work. So you have a lot of guys out here who they're just running around blind thinking that this is how things are. And there's nobody there to give them any sort of guidance. And because there is nobody there to give them any sort of guidance, they wind up getting either taken advantage of by these female predators, or they just get so angry when they realize that the fantasy isn't a reality that they wind up going out here and destroying people around them. Yes, Entrepreneur King, porn is fake. There is nothing real about pornography. All of the pornography you watch is a fantasy. It's all scripted and choreographed, and much of the porn you're watching is no different than WWE wrestling. And that's something many guys never really understand because they are so caught up in their lust and their feelings about these alleged sexual acts. They believe that this is an actual sexual act being performed in front of them. But most of this porn is just acting, just like wrestling is a act. And it's just all phony baloney. But your cyber simp, he believes that it's real stuff going on, but it's nothing real going on in any of that porn. Because once somebody takes a critical look at much of that adult entertainment, they start to see that a lot of this is staged and choreographed, and a lot of the moves there are just like wrestling moves. It's just all simulated, and you're thinking, oh, this is real, but this is not. And again, all fake. And that's another thing I put in Stop Simping in cyberspace. I go in depth on why it's fake, because a lot of these guys, they just live in fantasy worlds. And what's even worse is a lot of these guys, like I talk about in the Man Crisis, they go into the secret world to view this porn, and they believe they're seeing something real, but they're not seeing anything real at all as they're entering this secret world. And the whole thing is, I wanted to go out here and take the secret away so that you can see the reality as related to it, so that you can understand that this is not real, so that you, when you go out here and look at this type of content, you can just dismiss it for what it is, because these women are not this at all. It's just all, again, a fantasy that they're creating. And Entrepreneur King, if you want to get the Man Crisis, you can pick up the Man Crisis on Amazon.com. You can pick it up on paperback and Kindle format, so you can get the Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle format. And that's a book that will help you get a better understanding of the secret world that a lot of beta males are in. And it'll also give you a better understanding of manhood and the issues that men are going through right now. So it's a book that has helped a lot of men understand things. And I wrote that book because I saw so many men getting lost and disconnected, and I wanted those men to get a better understanding of the world. So I think it'll help you out a lot. The stranger said, I once blocked a guy on IG who sounds like a cyber simp, complaining about not having a girlfriend. He got so desperate he had his mother made a dating profile and nothing came of it. That definitely sounds like a cyber simp, stranger, because a lot of these guys, they are socially awkward. They want to have a girlfriend, but the whole thing is they don't have the social skills because they were never taught the social skills. And one of the worst things a guy could do is have his mother get involved, with relationships that he's trying to pursue. I mean, that is a sign by all women out there that this guy is extremely weak. And if he's got his mother involved, that's a fail right there. And if he's going on online dating, and I go on this and stop simping in cyberspace, that's a fail too, because online dating is considered the trash heap of the dating world. And if he's out there doing this, he's wasting his time. Now, when it comes down to your cyber simps, they want to go out here and do the online dating and think it's going to work because they're looking for a shortcut. And again, that's not a shortcut. You're going to have to go out here and do the work. You're going to have to go out here and learn how to approach women. You're going to have to learn how to talk to women. You're going to have to learn these social skills. And a lot of these guys, they're too afraid to go out here. And again, they're hiding behind their mothers, and you can't hide behind your mother. You have to go out here and stand up and be a man. You have to go out here and learn how these things work. And this is something that the cyber simp, he's so afraid of doing. He's just terrified of doing. And he wants to hide behind computer screens, but you can't hide behind a computer screen. You have to step out into the real world and make real connections with real people. But these guys, they're very angry and they're upset because they want to go out here and they want to get things easy, but there's nothing in life that is easy. And that's another issue that many of your cyber simps have, is they're looking for easy, but the whole world of pursuing relationships and dating and women, that is a hard world. And again, it has a steep learning curve. That's why you don't fixate on one woman. It's a steep learning curve. You're going to have a lot of failures. You're going to have a lot of people saying no. And you have to build that thick skin in order to take the no's, because it takes a lot of people saying no to you to get to yes. So a lot of these guys, they don't know how to deal with these kind of things. And it's a real problem because they want things to come easy, like going to the store, like doing a Google search, or just dropping some money in a super chat. And it doesn't work like that at all. You're going to have to, again, work on yourself, and you're going to have to learn how to pick up on nonverbal cues. You're going to have to learn how to pick up on body language. You have to learn how to pick up on facial expressions. These are all things that every preteen and teenage boy has to learn at an early age. He's got to learn how to read people, by sitting in front of a computer screen. You can't really learn how to read people by sitting up in front of a computer screen and dealing with possibly an avatar, because a lot of these guys, they create avatars and personas, but that's not how you can read somebody. I mean, you can read somebody by making that eye contact, looking at their face, looking at the way that they're standing. I mean, these are things that guys have to learn how to do early on. And they also have to learn how to feel internal energy, like the vibe a person's giving off, the spiritual energy somebody's giving off. These are all, things that guys have to learn how to do. And sadly, your cyber simp never learns how to do these things. And because he doesn't know how to do these things, this is why he goes out here and reacts the way he does, getting angry and acting out and lashing out. He acts out and lashes out because he does not know how things work. Because if he knew how things work, he would not be in these online places like somebody's Twitch live stream, or going to their Instagram page and thinking that this is a connection. He would understand these are not places that men go to meet people. No, these are places that a guy goes to just look at something here and there. And he's not really looking to look at women online. He's looking to go out here and use the internet as a business tool. Thank you, Mobar7170, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. He says, The Man Crisis is a great read. I recommended this book to both my family and friends. Thank you very much for the kind words. A lot of guys have recommended The Man Crisis to their friends and family, and this book has transformed lives of men who are Pookies and Ray Rays and taken them on the road to becoming men. And it's also helped many other men out here learn how to navigate the world. So I oftentimes write these men's issues books in order to help guys be able to um, understand how the world works, because a lot of guys, they did not have a father in their life. They do not have a man there to teach them male life skills and male survival skills. And a lot of guys growing up in this digital age, a lot of these guys are not really learning what they need to know. And that's why I wrote the book Stop Simping in Cyberspace. I mean, after I heard about that horror story in 2019 with Belle Delphine taking advantage of all those guys, I did a live stream about it, but then I realized that it wasn't enough, because I had more and more people telling me in the comic book world, the sci-fi world, the fantasy world, and the goth subculture that they were running into these female predators and they were getting played by them. So that was the reason why I went out and put my fingers to the keyboard and did Stop Simping in Cyberspace and worked to get this book to the marketplace, because I saw a lot of guys out here. They were telling me the horror stories about how they got taken for thousands of dollars by these kind of female predators. And they were telling me all, and I was reading stories about how a lot of these guys were turning into cyber stalkers because they weren't getting the guidance that they needed. So that's the reason why I put my fingers to the keyboard this year to get Stop Simping in Cyberspace out. And after I heard about the tragic Miss Mercedes Morr story, that's what makes me go out here and want to do live streams like this, because we really need to educate the guys out here on how to navigate this World Wide Web. Because as a guy who's been on the World Wide Web since about the year 2000, I have seen so many of these kind of scams go on with these type of female predators. And what back then, at least you had guys who would sit down and try to tell other guys that things were not what people thought they were. But these days, in the 2010s, as the last 10 years have passed, we have seen there has not really been anybody to sit down and talk to these young boys who grew up on the internet. Because a lot of people who were born in the year 2000, they grew up with computers, and they're not really as socially savvy as those who were part of Gen X, who grew up with the internet. So a lot of people, they grew up with the technology, yes, but they didn't grow up having somebody there to give them people skills and teach them how to work on their interpersonal skills. And they really didn't have any sort of buddy to tell them, hey, a lot of what you see in the virtual world isn't real. And because there's nobody there to tell them, hey, a lot of this stuff you're seeing in the virtual world, a lot of this stuff isn't real. A lot of these personalities you're seeing aren't real. And a lot of this content you're seeing isn't real. So they're thinking that this is a real person because they're seeing a face in front of them, and they're trying to form a personal connection with an imaginary construct created by that individual. And that individual, again, when they're doing that Instagram modeling or that OnlyFans adult content, or they're on that Twitch stream, they get dressed up and they get made up to do this type of content. They go out here, they get their hair done, or they put a wig on, they put makeup on, they set up a stage where they light everything up, and with ring lights and things like that, like I've got right here with this ring light. I'll show you right here how I can light myself up with a ring light to make things look a little better. Because I just take this little remote with the ring light and I can, put the light on me. And this is what they do. And as they're taking their photos with the ring light, you're thinking, oh, this is who this person is. But this isn't who this person is. No, this is the fantasy she's creating to sell you on whatever product she's selling, because that product could be pictures of herself. That product could be videos she's making. That product could be, photos she's doing, but it's a product. It's not who she really is. And you're thinking, oh, that's that person. No, that person is working and this is their job. And this is all stuff that a lot of the cyber simps don't really understand because, again, nobody is really sitting down and talking to these young men and giving them basic knowledge that I got when I was about 7, maybe 8 years old, when I watched a Star Wars special and learned about how special effects were made in movies. And then I also had my parents telling me about how things work. Really, kids are not getting talked to like this. And this is why we've got guys like cyber simps, again, committing violent crimes, or they're participating in behaviors where they get fleeced. Like I heard about a guy who spent $10,000 to go meet one of these online women. And again, this is a guy getting taken advantage of because he is not really being taught how things work. And a lot of these cyber simps, it's just they are not really given that guidance that they need in order to navigate the world. So that's another reason why I wrote the book Stop Simping in Cyberspace, is because these guys, they really need to know what's going on so that they won't get taken advantage of and they won't be out here spending their money and their time on these online platforms, because that time in your life, again, is very precious. And every second you spend online is time you could be out here doing something far more productive. I mean, I go into detail on this in Stop Simping in Cyberspace because I want to see guys have a more productive and abundant life and do more than sit in front of a computer looking to get something easy, because life is hard. And the faster you learn how hard life is, you can start working towards achieving some goals and going out here and making some progress. Computer Robot says, as a millennial man, he prefers to meet a woman face to face online and then go online, because I understand not everything is what they seem. But you should always just go face to face all the time. I always say go face to face, because that way you can learn how to read people and study what's really there. So I always believe face to face is the best way to go in any social interaction, because when you're going face to face, then you can actually read that person's body language and do things like study what this person, their motivation is, and you can also feel their energy and their presence. There are things that you can that are a part of face-to-face meetings that you just don't get from going online. And that's something that I want all the guys with Stop Simping in Cyberspace to really understand, is that there's a lot more to social interactions. And the faster you learn about those social interactions, you will avoid, again, dealing with these kind of predators, because, again, people online are not what you think they are. And that's something we've seen a lot with a lot of different people as they get exposed. We find out this person isn't who they are, and that's what then it just really shocks you. But that's the whole point of the internet, is people can become whatever they want. And the cyber simp, he also wants to become somebody that he imagines himself as. But what he does not understand is you can become the person you want to be, but you just have to put the work into it. So I always look at it this way: if I want to be that person, I have to put in that work to becoming that person. I just can't go out here and put up a persona. I have to be that person every day. And if I want to be a person who is great in my own eyes, I have to go out here and put in that work towards becoming that person. And I would rather put in that work out here in being in the real world than creating a fake persona. Boxing fan asks, would you agree there's a fine line between simping and showing you're a woman of a well-established man? No, there's no fine line at all between the two. A simp is just a guy who submits and defers to women. I go into this in the Stop Simping book. A guy who's just showing himself, he's open and transparent. A well-established man is not afraid to be who he wants to be. He is who he is. A simp is a guy who looks to submit and defer to women. He looks to put on personas to impress her. He looks to try to be what she wants him to be. But a well-established man, he is who he is. And if the person wants to be around him, they will be around him. And if not, he's perfectly fine with that. That's the difference between a simp and a well-established man of character, a God-centered man. A God-centered man is open and transparent, not afraid to be who he is. But a simp, everything about him is fake. Everything about him is based in fear, and everything about him is about trying to be what others want him to be and not be himself. So it's a very good question, and I'm hoping that answers it. But the whole thing is that you want to be a man of character. You want to be open and honest about yourself. And you want to go out here and do that because if you can accept yourself, others will accept you. And if you respect yourself, others will respect you. And those who don't respect you, don't worry about them. Only focus on those who want to be around you. That's something every guy needs to understand early on. Don't worry about the people who don't want to be around you. Worry about those who want to respect you and be who you are. And that's something many simps never really understand. They just go out here and they want to be this ideal, but the best thing to do is just be real. So I see again, a lot of what happens with a lot of these cyber simps out here. And it's just really sad to see these guys, again, go out like this. But again, it can be easily helped out if these guys just took a little guidance. And I really want to see those guys get help because, like the thirsty dude, this cyber simping is a paradigm that can easily, as I see it, be broken by just these guys learning a little bit about how things work with people. So if you guys want to again learn something a bit more about the cyber simps, you can pre-order my upcoming ebook, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, on Amazon right now. I'm going to have the paperback out soon. So you can pre-order the Stop Simping in Cyberspace right now and get that book. I'm trying to get the pre-orders up on that book. And that book, I believe, is going to help a lot of guys out here as related to it. So I really want to see more guys picking up this book because it's definitely going to help a lot of guys. The paperback, I'm hoping to have it out by early October because I'm going to release the paperback before I release the Kindle version. And I've got the pages laid out. It's uploaded to KDP. And I just need to do one more round of edits before I release it. But I want to get this book out here sooner rather than later because so many guys out here, they need this information and they need this help. And that's why I did this live stream because one of my viewers requested it and I want to get this information out here because this is the same information that I've put in the book. A lot of it is a lot of the information I put in the book in this stream. And I'm hoping that this helps some guys out here learn how to break out of the cyber simp paradigm. So I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And before I leave tonight's stream, I want to ask everybody to donate to the Cash App so I can continue making more live streams and more videos and paying for the internet, or asking everybody to donate to the PayPal, or going out here and picking up one of my other books on the SJS Direct imprint that I have out right now. Books like The Man Crisis and books like Eternal Night. Every book that you buy helps the SJS Direct imprint, and it helps me be able to go out here and continue creating more great projects like the upcoming Woman Crisis book. And I also have other great books that are positive Black fiction. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight's stream, and I hope you'll be there for next week's stream.